Hello there, welcome to the garden. So I am just out here on a beautiful evening, just kind of enjoying the garden, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, I think, like my top, I don't know, just like the top thing to know if you're gonna be planting in a small garden like this, if you're going to be doing the high intensity planting that I'm doing. One of the things that I constantly am coming out and doing when I'm out here in the garden is just sort of like pruning and trimming and maintaining things. And that is so crucial when you're growing things as close together as I am. If you've been around here, know I fudge the limits for spacing on plants big time. That's probably my biggest garden, I don't know. That's where I rebel probably the most in the garden. So in order to have a garden that still kind of survives and grows, I've learned that staying on top of kind of like pruning and taking care of the plants makes a big difference. Now, of course, you can just go survival of the fittest and let all the plants do whatever they're gonna do and just not worry about it. I think that's also wonderful. I have spaces that I kind of just let things happen, but I also do some kind of in high intensity kind of care. And I was just kind of doing a few of those little things when I was out here, and I thought I would just chat with you about what I'm doing, how I'm maintaining this super densely planted garden. So other than, all the other things like really staying on top of watering and fertilizing, that kind of stuff, it's the getting in there and doing the pruning and trimming and moving that makes a big difference. So case in point, this container that I'm looking at right here, a fun container. I've got this really pretty, this is why am I forgetting the name for, I think this is a Superbina. I think, it's called Romance, I think. Anyways, there's the Superbina in here, a really big parsley. I actually planted this in the fall, and it stayed pretty small all winter and then now has really taken off, but it's a really beautiful flat leaf Italian parsley, super delicious. And then right over here you can see this Jimmy Nardello pepper that is growing up. And when I came out here earlier, this whole parsley had fallen over over the pepper. And so one of the things I did was come and just push the plant back. And then I also, actually I could trim these lower so they're a little more sightly. I actually pruned off a few branches, like this branch that's coming over the verbena. I'll just take that back and just prune it off. And and then I'll of course take out the dead growth too, because that just helps everything. But doing pruning like that to give space, this way the verbena has some space. I have to definitely do a lot of pruning around the pepper at this point in the container's life, because that pepper is so much smaller and less mature than the other two plants. But doing things like that makes a big difference. If I were to just leave it the way it was and not do any of this pruning back and not get in here and make room, there would be no way for this pepper to grow. It would never get to its mature size. So that's kind of the, behind the scenes sort of things that we don't always talk about, I feel like, but really make a big difference. If you don't size control plants like that, they will just, the biggest ones will grow, like that parsley would just completely overtake the pepper. And maybe, if I didn't care, then I would just leave it. But it's always just kind of good. I like to come in and keep tabs on things. Let me show you. Here is my herb container. I'll just come in here. I have been harvesting off of this lettuce plant, and this lettuce will probably come out of this container, and then I'll just let it grow. But I just kind of keep an eye on it. Now the sun is facing, this is our southern side, so you can see here that the sage is getting a lot taller than, of course, our thyme, our Greek oregano. This is a really pretty variegated lemon thyme. So I'm just going to rotate the container a little bit. This will put the taller plant at the back and give these sort of smaller, more rambling plants more of the southern site. That'll just help kind of maintain the container. And I'm just gonna kind of just push things around. Sometimes you don't even need to trim back your plant. Sometimes if you just you'll see how plants start to grow in and amongst each other. So if you don't want them doing that, like sometimes just literally doing this on a sort of regular basis can be enough. It depends a little bit on how vigorous your plant is and how often you're doing that. But things like that, they make a big difference for a container. You would be surprised. I have in here a little eucalyptus that I planted, so I also want to make sure that that's getting all the sun it wants. So this will be a good, yeah, this is going to be good because now the southern exposure, the beating down sun, is going to hit all this in a much better way. Also, this is reminding me here, when you prune back leaves, go all the way back to the plant. I often forget to do that, but it just looks so much better to not have like these little sticks poking out. Now there are some things that I like when it goes together. Like I do have all these pots close together and I like the look of that, so that's fine with me. This petunia is looking good. I am in a deadhead. This is a headliner petunia, so this is kind of like those classic petunias. And the thing with petunias you can do, and it's hard, is you can prune them. That's always really hard for me to do, but if you start early enough in the season with a little bit of trimming like that, even you might take off some buds, which is so hard to do. This is spilling a little bit, which I kind of like the look of that, but I'm gonna just do a little bit of pruning. It's gonna help to keep this petunia nice and full in the container and not getting too rambly and spilly. That is important. We just got rain the other night, and rain tends to make petunias look a little floppy, so my petunias don't look great. I'm just going to come in here. I've got 2 petunia plants in here. I'm fine with that, but I am going to do a little bit of trimming to keep them in their best shape. Oh my goodness. It's hard to do, but it's going to keep this more full, and it'll be blooming again. All those blooms I take off, you'll hardly even notice that within just a few days. But it helps to keep them in a more even space, because this black petunia, this is the, I think it's called, gosh, I don't know, is it Black Beauty? This is a more like upright, compact variety. So next to this more spilly one, I think it looks better if this one is more trimmed up, and it's just going to be an overall better shape, because we are still early in the season. So I do not need my petunias to be totally trailing out this early in the season. Right now, by the time we get to July, that container is not going to be looking great. So that's key. I also have been doing this kind of like size controlling and controlling for different varieties in this raised bed over here, because I really packed this bed tight with plants. Let me show you how jam-packed it is. So this bed is so full. We've got these are actually the rat's tail radishes, so I'm actually growing them for the bloom, not the root. They're kind of a really pretty flower. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Isn't that pretty? They're going to form little seed pods that I can eat. So they're going to be really beautiful. They are going to then come out of the garden. And then I have 2 foxgloves here. These are the Excelsior foxgloves. They're actually a biannual. They're supposed to bloom the second year, but I started them last summer, and they're looking like they're sending up some bloom stalks, which is really cool. But I also have Russian sage in here and a couple places. So I did come in yesterday and I took out one of the foxglove leaves right here to kind of let this Russian sage have a bit more room. And like this is a radish leaf. I'm gonna pop that out. That's gonna give the Russian sage more room. And I'm just gonna, like, you see, just kind of take out the lower leaves. That the radish does not need these lower leaves. That's not going to be a problem. I could even take out this leaf from the foxglove probably without bothering the foxglove one bit. This is a radish leaf, that won't matter. And that just kind of creating spaces. So now the Russian sage has room to grow up, and it's not going to be crowded out as much. These are the things we do here. If I take this leaf off, that's going to give space for my cucumber to get sunlight, and then these are my cosmos. They will get sunlight more easily through there as well. And then we have these are all a bunch of echinaceas, and they seem to be growing together pretty well, so I'm going to leave those. I'm not worried about that. We've got some bachelor buttons up here in the front. Okay, all good. But that kind of stuff, I'm always kind of keeping an eye and fussing with the beds, and I think it makes a difference. And sometimes you have to make calls. So these are some radishes. growing next to my eggplants here. I need to make sure, I probably should just pull them out. I'm gonna give them like a couple more days because they're about to hit maturity, but I'm gonna pull the leaves from my garlic off of the eggplants, and just stuff like that makes, yeah, as I said, just makes a big difference. I do a lot of the time when I'm just out here like poking around, I just go in and just make sure nobody, I'm just putting all of these ends over by the worm bin. I just make sure that nobody is pushing anybody out, that everybody's getting sunlight, containers are rotated correctly, and we're not, yeah, basically just that no one is getting overtaken. I did end up taking the peas that I had grown alongside of my clematis and just like ripping them off the clematis. Let's take another moment to appreciate the beauty of a still water clematis. I think it still waters actually. Oh my gosh, I could look at these all day. Is that not the most stunning flower? Okay, anyways, I had grown some peas. These are, I think, like a yellow blush pea. They were obviously growing up. Their tendrils were though attaching to the clematis and kind of like ripping the clematis off of the arch trellis. It was not working as I hoped, and it was actually, I think, damaging the clematis. So I just like ripped the peas down, and I am leaving them now. So I'm just letting them be, you know, over here, and they're gonna probably flower and produce peas, and I'll probably be able to harvest them, then just cut the plants off at the base and get them away from the clematis. But that's what I ended up doing to try to save the clematis. So that kind of thing happens too, I feel like. And you know, what are you gonna do? I wanted to make sure that the clematis were gonna be okay. They were kind of my priority. So I think that happens sometimes too. You know, we all make mistakes. And well, for a while, I thought I could kind of come up with a really fun combination. And then I realized, oh, no. Those peas, they were attaching to the clematis and not to the trellis, which makes sense. And then they were putting too much weight on the clematis. So I ended up moving that. But yeah, you know, that happens too. Can't worry about it too much. This is spring crops, like those radishes that are in the way of my eggplants, and then the peas growing on the clematis. This is what always happens to me with spring crops. I always get them planted. I get really enthusiastic in like late February, early March, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna plant it. And then come this time of year, it starts getting in the way of my summer things. I did better this year than I ever have before on that front. I did not plant too many things in spaces that I need to rip out, and I am just waiting. So I've got like a few of these containers with the lettuce. I'm gonna let the lettuce grow until it's no more, and then I'm gonna pull it out and plant in whatever is blooming at the garden center. I'm hoping that we'll get kind of these like variations of the garden where, you know, we've got the summer look, and then, or the spring look, and then the summer look, or the May look, the June look, that kind of thing. So that those containers, I did okay as far as the like spring crops, because I'm just waiting to replace them. But it gets a little dicey, like the radishes in the raised bed, where I'm like, okay, but now I want to make sure that my eggplants have all the sun they need, and that's my priority, and I don't really care about the radishes. Although we have harvested a couple. Those are like the white icicle radishes. Boy, they are spicy. I don't know if it's the weather. We've had things cool down here in the last few days, so that could be part of it, but whew, those are some spicy radishes. Well, anyways, I'm gonna continue poking around and make sure all the containers are in good shape. But I just wanted to chat with you guys for a little bit and just kind of share that too, in case you're wondering how this high density planting works. That's how it works. I happen to love deadheading, and I love like trimming and pruning and fussing with plants. So for me, it's perfect. You know, obviously if you didn't enjoy those things, it might be a little bit more of a challenging style, but I absolutely love it. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.